The ticket became an interesting challenge. You suggested as much when we first had you on New Day. You said, if I get it. And I said, what do you mean if? You said, well, let the convention play out. Why was it tricky to get the ticket settled?
Well, these are libertarian activists, and they very much care about liberty and freedom. And me being their representative, they really care about that. I just think there are tens of millions of Americans out there that have no idea what it is to be libertarian, and I think I do a better job of communicating that going forward.
What's the pitch?
I've been given that.
If you're not crazy about Trump, you're not crazy about Clinton or Sanders, we know that over 50% of people polled said, yeah, I'd be open to a third thing. Why would the libertarian be a good choice?
How about the best of both worlds? The notion of being fiscally conservative and socially liberal. The notion that smaller government is something that really is desirable, that government taxes too much. And then on the civil liberties side, look, always come down on the side of people being able to make their own choices in their own lives, as long as those choices don't adversely affect others. And then Bill Weld is my running mate. How about a couple of skeptics at the table when it comes to our military interventions? And maybe at the end of the day, these military interventions have the unintended consequence of making things worse, not better. Less safe as opposed to safer.
You've been in the party system. Again, you were a Republican governor of New Mexico. Why hasn't this worked? The idea of a Rockefeller Republican, you know, somebody who is more socially liberal but fiscally conservative. It seems that those middle ground positions have died off in favor of more extreme ones in the two parties.
Well, Chris, I would argue that actually I think most Republicans, even though they might be socially conservative, don't want to make that public policy. Because at the end of the day, if you make social conservatism public policy, you end up putting people in jail for their choices. And we do have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. I think that starts with the drug war and the fact that but for our drug war, there are tens of millions of Americans who are convicted felons that but for our drug laws would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens.
Except people see them as criminals. People see transgender people who want to use a bathroom that they identify with
that's the Republican
as a
side
potential
of it.
predator.
That's the Republican side of it.
But they're popular positions within, you know, at least one party.
I don't necessarily think so. And of course, I wasn't really given an opportunity to represent that on the Republican side. I served as a two-term governor of New Mexico, which is a heavily blue state. Bill Weld served as a two-term Republican governor in a heavily blue state. We both made names for ourselves being fiscally conservative, really pinching the pennies.
Let's look at the polls. They have you at 10% right now. I understand the Johnson argument, and it is a good one, that how can you judge my poll numbers when I don't get included in the poll?
Exactly. Since the last time we met, we talked about the fact, hey, Gary, you're showing up really well in these polls. Well, Chris, since then, I don't know, there have been 40 national polls where my name has not appeared.
So it's not fair on that level. I understand that. But so they have you at 10. And again, this is a qualified number. But with voters under 30, I believe, there's a much more robust number. It's about 18%. What does that number tell you?
Well, based on what that number tells me is what's the harm in having my name appear all the time so that you might actually measure that, delve into it, understand why that's the case. I really do think it's an appeal across the board. It isn't just young people. Look, my message doesn't change regardless of which audience I'm in front of. Democrats, Republicans, libertarians. Look, government's too big. Keep government out of our pocketbooks. Keep government out of our bedrooms. And then these military interventions. Look, the world is less safe today. That isn't to say that this isn't well-intentioned. We have treaties with 69 countries where we are obligated to defend their borders, and none of those treaties have been authorized by Congress. Let's get Congress involved in declaration of war. Let's get Congress involved.
Well, they shirk it, right?
They do. They shirk it, exactly.
Because you have the, we talk about this on the show a lot, the authorization for use of military force is an old one that is being used right now. The president has requested a new one. The Congress doesn't want to act on it for whatever reasons. With a lot of these treaties, very often Congress gives the power to the president, so they reserve the right to complain about it after the fact.
I mean, spot on.
It takes you to the how. How would you do it differently with regards to ISIS than what we're hearing from Trump or Clinton?
Well, that it is a very real threat, but where is the open debate and discussion over what it is that we should be doing? Congress has abdicated its responsibility.
So you're saying you would pull Congress in?
Absolutely.
Instead of coming up with your own plan unilaterally, you'd say you must be part of this process.
And I would go into this with the intention of getting our troops out of the Middle East. I would go into this with the intention of not flying drones and killing thousands of innocent people. That's the way I would go into this. And if there's an argument on the other side, well, let's hear it. Let's get it out in the open. Let's let the American public be a part of this.
A lot of the politics to date between the two or three main candidates has been intensely personal. You were passionate on one of these issues when you were making your speech after the convention nomination. Here's a little taste of it.
As a border state governor, it's incendiary to 50% of the population of New Mexico that he's talking about Hispanics, Mexicans in this way when the absolute opposite is true. They call him out on what is really racist. It's just racist.
Trump will say, one, being Mexican is not a race. Two, as you know, former Governor Johnson, the people coming across the border illegally are often not the best that Mexico has to offer.
That isn't true, Chris. That is what is so misunderstood. The people coming across the border are people that just want jobs. The jobs are there,
but there
they
are
can't
criminals
get the
who come
job.
as well.
Absolutely. So how about making a system whereby it would be easy to get a work visa, a moving line to get across the border, having a work visa, so that the people crossing the border illegally, that the Border Patrol would actually be able to identify those people, as opposed to mothers with children that are actually waiting across the Rio Grande because of jobs that exist and they can't get over to take advantage of them.
But is Trump wrong when he says they also send the worst, not the best? They're rapists and murderers that come as well.
Absolutely untrue.
But you have the cases like the one in San Francisco, not only did give a bash to sanctuary cities, but showed that this guy had been kicked out, he comes back in, he kills somebody.
Statistics. You know, you always have the worst. And I don't want to in any way defend the worst, but statistically, illegal immigrants commit far less crime than U.S. citizens. That's statistically speaking.
Are you ready for Donald Trump, once you're in this thing and he recognizes you, to give you a big punch in the nose for calling him a racist?
I think that they've already started coming. So, you know, Donald.
That's an interesting rebuttal you have there, Governor. I don't know how it's going to go over, but it may get a reaction. Governor Johnson, congratulations on being at the top of the ticket.
Thank you.
As the race goes on, you know you're always welcome here at New Day to talk about what matters.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you.